It is 12:59. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. SEC presidents voted on a new scheduling format Thursday at SEC spring meetings. The league will do away with divisions and play an 8-game regular season in 2024, with another vote coming down the road to determine the long-term future of SEC scheduling. The league goes up to 16 teams in 2024 with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. College baseball, NCAA regional action underway today. Tennessee facing Charlotte in the Clemson Regional at 5 p.m. You can hear the Vol Network call right here on The Zone. That'll pick up at 6 right after 3HL. Vanderbilt home all weekend for the Nashville Regional, facing Eastern Illinois tonight, starting at 7. College softball, the Tennessee Lady Vols started their Women's College World Series run with a 10-5 win over Alabama. They will face defending champs Oklahoma Saturday at 2 p.m. And Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals drops the puck Saturday night in Vegas. The Golden Knights facing the Florida Panthers at 7 p.m. Nashville Soccer Club looks to continue a run of 7 straight games unbeaten in MLS play as they hit the road to take on FC Dallas Saturday night. Pre-game coverage starts on The Zone at 7 p.m. with kickoff at 7:30. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Friday, everybody. Blaine and Mickey here on 104.5 The Zone. I am not Mickey Ryan. Rhett Bryan filling in for him as he enjoys some baseball today with his St. Louis Cardinals this weekend. Don't stand between a man and his baseball team. How we doing, Blaine?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's Friday, of course.
That's it, man. Yeah. We're going to act like it, too.
Yeah,
it's going to be good. Want to talk, lots of things to talk about over the next couple of hours. When we have Buck Reising on here in about 20 minutes, recap a little bit of Brett Kern's retirement with him, and we're going to start conversation with that here in just a moment. But we're going to talk about also in this first hour, Titans undrafted free agents that you should keep an eye on for minicamp, because that's coming up next week, and kind of parlaying that into an hour two. What are some of the storylines before Titans minicamp begins? And of course, we'll certainly touch on the SEC and how mad that Lucas is about them going to an 8-game schedule in 2024 and not 9 already. We'll get into all that, plus call your shot at 2:45 before we check out for the weekend. So yesterday at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, Brett Kern hangs up the cleats after a brilliant 15-year career. And it's always fascinated me because as I walked into the building yesterday, I'm walking in with Ryan Suckup, who there's a Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft with the year he came out. Here's Brett, undrafted. And it's a common story for a lot of specialists, although it seems like they're getting drafted a little earlier in NFL drafts now. But I just think about how many games those guys played in, how much they did. And really what I thought about the most, Blaine, is what kind of impact does a guy have both on and off the field? And Brett Kern is certainly someone that you should consider in that, even though, it's like, well, but Rhett, he's a punter. It's like, nah, he's a really good, one of the best directional punters in the game, and certainly a great one for the Titans. And he's a part of a legacy position for the Titans, because prior to him, your teammate, Craig Hendrick, and I remember I was there the day they announced him and brought him in from Green Bay, and what a fantastic career he had. But you just think about how big a deal that is. Well, then I start looking around the room and seeing who's there for his retirement announcement. When Derrick Henry comes upstairs to stand in the back of the room to support you, I'm like, okay, that's real. That tells me how much respect he has with his teammates.
Well, I mean, to me, all that's irrelevant. He was a good player, whether he was a punter, kicker, safety, running back. Mm-hmm. So when people try to quantify and say, he was the punter, that it doesn't matter. He was elite not only on his play, but also as a person off the field. So all those things, and who all is there, that's about respect. But there was a lot of people who weren't there, even that he addressed, that were part of the Titans organization. So I kind of look at it as a little deeper than that, and everybody with the schedules that everybody has now today. But out of respect to him, because of what they respected, not on, but just what he did on the field, but off the field, I think is a tip of the cap, and he's a Titans legend, and potentially Hall of Famer, even in the NFL Hall of Fame. It's just interesting because it's hard for actually kickers and punters to get in. It just seems like the criteria is really hard, but I think he's going to have a shot. And I never thought, as I said yesterday, that I'd ever say that someone was better as far as statistically with the organization outside of Craig Hendricks as a punter. And I could say Brett Kern did it. He followed the dude and outdid the dude.
Yeah.
So that was pretty special. And to hit all the marks, and he's got all the, the records, pretty much almost all of them with the Titans organization. So it'll be interesting to see where Stonehouse goes from here, because we all know once a record's set, they all will be broken.
At some point.
That's crazy. We're saying that on actually, Brett Kern, day. So that was pretty cool. But what a great human being. I think that's what it showed mostly, that he was a real likable and approachable guy. A lot of kickers and punters are usually kind of quirky guys. He was not that guy. He was the normal, regular, everyday Joe guy, just like the rest of everybody else. Usually the kickers and punters kind of have this way about them where they are really mental, because it's a mental game. It's, I would refer to them more like golfers. So they really don't want a lot of people around them, whether they miss or make. And then when you do want to address them, they kind of give you just a high five and just keep going. Well, he was never none of any of that. So I want to tip the cap to him. Man, what a great player and what a great career. And man, unfortunately, he walked away coming up a little short on getting that ring. But man, you got to say Brett Kern was the best, not only as a player but as a person.
He is an all-world person, no question.
Well, he leads by his faith, and a lot of players do. And when you do that, you can't be broken, whether it's through your play or through a coach or through outside factors. Whether they think it's funny or not, he's never going to tell you what he thought they were. But when you're strong in your faith like that, whether you agree or disagree with what someone thinks about you, let alone says to you, will not affect you. And that's who he is.
Well, and to your point, he was exemplary of a life of faith and following the Lord, because it's just the way he carried himself. I've done a lot of community events with him. We did lots of school shows in off season, or the old Titans caravan with him and T-Rack, and he was always fantastic wherever he went, whatever he did. And the great thing is he was one of those that he always tried to get better every day. And you set it up right, because he had a great acceptance speech in this, and he said if it times out good, it'll be 13 and a half minutes, whatever it was he said. And he thanked a lot of people. Yeah, Craig Hendrick was one of them who was kind enough to show him, hey, let me put this other weapon in your tool bag, in the golf club bag, if you will. It's this knuckleball. Let me teach you how to do that. And golly. And then he
passed on his legacy of that knuckleball, which he learned, I'm sure, whether through experience or through some coach or through another player, probably a little bit of all of those things to pass down to him. So I thought that was admirable of Craigie, but he was no longer going to be kicking anyway. So
he had
like they
so
were
many issues with his
you.
neck and back. And and I remember Coach Mack telling the story about how when it was time that he was actually released from the Broncos after 22 games of service, Alan Lowry went and stood on the table to Coach Fisher saying, hey, we got to get this guy. We must have this guy. He is a difference maker. And all these years later, here we are, and Alan Lowry was right.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and he backed it up as a player. So he made all Titans fans and coaches the like proud. I think we saw some Craig Hendricks jerseys, so we saw the Brett Kern, but we didn't see Craig Hendricks on the side of the stadium. What were your thoughts on when he had the big billboard with Brett Kern on the side? It shows you what he meant not only to the fan base, but the organization knowing what he meant to the fan base, putting him up there too as well.
It's 1,000,000% correct. And when he thanked the fans yesterday, he goes, people have mentioned to me numerous times about, hey, I don't go to the restroom or the concession stand on fourth down because I never know what's going to happen when you put the ball on the laces, man. And I'm like, that's huge. That is really, but yeah, to have your likeness and image on the side of the stadium. And, he mentioned also those really lean years in 14 and 15 when they went 5-27 during, and you guys talked about it yesterday. He and Derek Morgan are the only two that played for all 5 Titans head coaches.
Yeah. And to think, Brett Kern at one point in time may have been the best player on the team.
100%.
Think about that. Now, that is insane for a punter to say, or to even be in the conversation that I'm one of the best players on the team.
Yeah.
So that's hats off to him. I could see that happening in college, but the pros, well, we must have been at really the Debbie Downer of times. Titan wasn't up, it was down.
Yeah, it was definitely down. So that brings up to the question, and you mentioned Canton as a possibility, even though it's really hard to get in as a specialist. I do think there is one thing he's suited for, the Titans Ring of Honor. I think he's very worthy of that.
What is the actual criteria for the Ring of Honor?
You know what? Now, that's a great question, and I knew you'd ask me. I do not have the answer. But,
if you knew I was going to ask you, you're supposed to have the answer.
Well, I prepped, but I didn't prep that good. So it just...
Because I'm honestly, I don't know what's the criteria. It seems like it's really hard to even get in the Ring of Honor, at least the Titans Ring of Honor.
Sure. When you think who is in there, I mean, lots of them have gold jackets, or they are significant in the window of time that they played in what they attributed in windows of success. And but I think he's certainly worthy.
I thought Jarrell Casey, too. I remember talking about it on that day when he announced his retirement. I think he'd be worthy of it as well.
He certainly could be a candidate for that. Delaney Walker could be a candidate for that, because when we're talking about the Brett Kerns, Delaney Walkers, the Kyle Vanden Bosches, and those are some of the greatest free agent acquisitions ever. I mean, your teammate Frank Wycheck, Floyd Reese picked him up for $100 off the waiver wire from Washington and never looked back, and the rest is history. So, there are things that come along like that, but I think.
I mean, you can go down the laundry list. As he mentioned, Jarrell Casey was CJ2K. I mean, we can go down to Javon Curse. I mean, we could just start naming guys from different eras to say, why are they not in the Ring of Honor? So that's why I said, what is the actual criteria?
Sure.
So I don't know that criteria. And the only criteria you can really go by is to say they're Hall of Fame. But there's some people up there that are not in the Hall of Fame, but they're probably candidates for the Hall of Fame. So,
and you know what's interesting, Blaine, is when we travel to all these road games, I look at the other older storied franchises who have Rings of Honor, and it's the similar thing. It's not everybody's in there. I mean, you can see the names, go, yep, he should be there. Yep. You go to Kansas City and you go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's that way in Miami. It's that way with a lot of these places that actually honor them in the ring like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely is there. But there are a lot of guys who are not going to be Hall of Fame worthy that are in their, team's Ring of Honor.
That's right. Oh, that's right.
I'm close in Indianapolis. Tariq Glenn got in there, and I'm going, well, I don't know if he'll ever get a shot at being in offensive lineman. A lot of people wouldn't even know who that was. Or Richmond Webb, or for the Dolphins. Is he in the Ring of Honor? Oh, he is, but he's in the Hall of Fame, right? See, so I just don't know if that criteria. Every team, I think, has little different loopholes to why maybe the guys in. It could be also not just his play. Naturally, that's part of it, but I think also what they do in the community, what they mean to the organization. I think it could be any gamut because it's actually their choice.
Sure. On the way, when we continue Blaine and Mickey, we will talk with Buck Reising as he enters the weekend. We're going to talk to him about some OTA stuff and leading into minicamp, mandatory minicamp this next week. His thoughts on that, maybe what his thoughts are on Brett Kern. When we continue next, it's Blaine and Mickey here on 104.5 The Zone. Rolling through hour one of Blaine and Mickey with the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Rhett, Bryan in for Mickey Ryan today, who was enjoying some Major League Baseball. Everybody knows he loves the old St. Louis Cardinals. And we're continuing discussions throughout the afternoon. Many things to cover, but the next one we're going to cover is with the man that is on here Monday through Friday on the Zone. Buck Reising joins us here on Blaine and Mickey. Buckaroo, are you there?
I sure am, boys. How we living?
Good. How about you?
I'm great. I'm just out here enjoying this lovely weather that I know we're going to have all weekend. I'm sure Rhett Bryan, forecaster extraordinaire, knows more about the weather than I would even.
There's a chance of pop-up showers usually, but yeah, going to be warm, going to be sunny, and perfect for doing what anybody wants to do. I'm going to, I think, Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, probably smoke and grill some delightful objects on the grill.
I'm very. I will look forward to my invitation. I'm sure Lucas is already endeavoring to find out where you live. So he can
yes, absolutely. I did a lot of that last weekend for Memorial Day, or actually, I should say on Monday. I did a lot of that stuff. Smoked about 4 racks of ribs. It was good stuff. Let's dive in for a second. We've been talking since we started the show, just kind of recapping the retirement announcement of Brett Kern. And the thing I brought up, and you may have done the same, is I think he's worthy of being considered for the Titans Ring of Honor because of what he meant to this franchise on and off of it, and how he's such a difference maker and a weapon in a specialist role.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to make a case, and honestly, the two of you, I'd be curious to know what you think about this, like where they are as far as like former players and the amount of time that guys have spent with them, and the amount of, for example, Mickey, I know, had the stat of Brett Kern has literally played for every Titans coach in the history of the Tennessee Titans. Not the history of the franchise, but in the history of the Tennessee Titans. Brett Kern has played for all 5 of those dudes. Yeah. Which is just an insane thing to think about, but of course it's insane that anybody would last 15 years in that sport, regardless of position. So, it's tough for me to make a case for a more deserving person for that honor whenever such time as those things are being considered. Mm-hmm. I know, specialists often get discounted a little bit, but I don't think anybody would dare discount what that man did for this team. Certainly if you're a defender, you love him. If you're a special teams coach, you love him. And what he provided for them in terms of leadership as a 2-time captain and All-Pro and all the different things that Brett was able to accomplish here in Tennessee specifically. I know that would mean a great deal to him and his family, and he's certainly somebody worth considering.
So as I'm going to pivot now to, we have mandatory minicamp for the Titans, and this is coming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And obviously I know you're not able to get out there because you're on the air, but you were there, yesterday for Brett Kern's goodbye and salute there. But just thinking about next week and it being no voluntary, mandatory, what are some of the storylines that we're thinking about for this mandatory minicamp? Because I would think that, in my mind, it has to start with number 31 and Kevin Byard and whether he's there or not.
Yeah, that's the first place I was going to go, right? And, with the way that the schedule's structured, I can't get all of the practices in, but I catch about half and then the media afterwards, so still get a little workout there. Byard is a number one, without question. Like, he's obviously in town. He's been communicating with his coaching staff. Mike Ribble's seen him on the golf course, talked about it. He's on Zoom calls with Scott Booker, the safeties coach, on a regular basis. He's not, completely removed from the process, even though he's not physically on the field. The fines not being able to be rescinded now makes the mandatory minicamp fine situation a lot harder to deal with, because it used to be the teams can, fine them in principle and then just remove the fines or waive the fines once they ended up showing up and everybody got on the same page again. But I think that in this case, it would be very, very telling should he not be there for mandatory minicamp. The expectation around the building is that he will be there for mandatory minicamp. But, of course, there was an expectation that Christian Fulton was going to be on the practice field the other day, and he was not. So those things can be fluid from time to time.
I think Teron Davenport, our friend from ESPN, reported that Christian Fulton did come in, but I think he'd been working inside the building, if I'm not mistaken. But no, obviously he hadn't been out there at practice. But yeah, that's a couple of that's the two things I'm thinking off the top of my head. And then, look, I'm one of these that people make too much out of one particular practice, but I think Will Levis would like to have a little better week next week than he's had this week. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah. And he talked about, frustrations and managing them and trying not to get too caught up in the moment. Rhett, I don't know if you saw it when we were out there on Wednesday, the way that they ended practice with him tripping over the center's legs and a botched exchange there. He fell down and then got up, took his helmet like he might slam it down to the ground, and then kind of caught himself, went over and threw a towel, something much less expensive should he, break any of the microphone equipment or anything like that in the new helmets. You see LSU has air-conditioned helmets now. I saw that for the first time. Yeah, those things are getting more and more expensive. But Will Levis could certainly do with a lot better week of work, and those things are fine, right? Like, those mistakes that are being made, there is no more important time to make mistakes than right now when it doesn't really cost you anything, especially the OTAs. Training camp, obviously, competition ramps up. It's more, I don't know, it just feels more real that guys are actually fighting for jobs out there as opposed to what the more casual-paced OTA environment might be. Although if you see any of these Michael Vrabel sled workouts, maybe casual is the wrong word. But Will Levis could definitely do with an improved week of work at mandatory minicamp when everybody is theoretically out there and available for him to work with and to work against.
Yes, we're on with Buck Reising from the Buck Reising Show, naturally here right before the Blaine and Mickey show. I guess let's just sticking with the quarterbacks. How has the impression of those guys, Willis included, with Levis, in their development and progression? We must not forget. It's like anybody else comparable to when you first started broadcasting. You're not what you are today, what you were when you started. So we cannot panic because, someone gets upset or they're going through the maturation process. The real test of time is that you don't continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. And how are you progressing as a young player? And then when everything clicks in, sooner than later, at least you hope for, especially those high draft picks, then you want to see what the product look like. So I'm thinking, hey, I don't really need to see you till training camp because guess what? Once you get to training camp, I want to see the progression there. Then the confidence level and everything else that you have in your talent will then exceed everything else. So I guess kind of explain how Willis looks compared to last season, and you kind of went through Levis a little bit and tell us how they look comparable to one another.
Yeah, that new mistakes element of it that you mentioned, Blaine, right, is something that they're, not encouraging is the wrong word,
right, well,
but like that they are accepting of.
Just don't make the same mistakes over and over again. No, it's, just like telling your kids something. Hey, man, I told you that 2 weeks ago. Why you do that again? It's the same thing. I don't know why people get out, your panties in a wad over that. I mean, but that's all this is.
Yeah. Well, people want microwave results, Blaine, and I think a lot of people, and it's good to remind them every year, and I think we're pretty good about doing that, but we see one of the 3 days every week that they're out there on the practice field, right? So Levis, he wasn't a disaster by any stretch of the imagination on Wednesday, but he wasn't good. He could have had a better day on Tuesday. He could have had a better day today, and we don't know that because we're not out there at that point. So it's an even smaller sample size of that week of work being reacted to that kind of spins those things out of control. But with Willis, my general concerns I think are still there with the ball placement and the accuracy. I think that the thing that he is most noticeably better at is he understands their operation. He understands, which is not inconsequential, by the way.
Yeah.
He's much more comfortable out there. He knows what kind of drills they're going to run. He knows, he is going through the same thing that everybody is going through right now, which is new play caller, new terminology. It sounds like more of a ground up, rebuild of the offense than I think many of us might have anticipated, given that the hire was internal. But that's what many people were calling for. That's been all the messaging around that. He hasn't been noticeably bad on any day. But again, it's important to remind people that there's only moments when this stuff looks like real football, according to Mike Vrabel. And the real football was the concern for Malik, right? The ability to read defenses, the ability to be decisive, the footwork, when he chooses to take off, how long he's patting the ball before he fires it off, and all these different things. How willing he is to just generally pass as opposed to run. That is not something that can be discerned until we see live game reps, or as close as we'll get in the preseason. To Levis, I would say that those accuracy concerns are something that you can see on a regular basis, and a lot of the throws short are interesting to me, where the receiver is having to kind of adjust at a weird angle to make the catch if they're capable of making the catch. He's not out there skipping balls, but there seems to be, at least in the sample size that I've seen of him now, in I guess three OTAs and a minicamp practice, or a rookie minicamp practice. That is something that's been a recurring theme.
So is this,
I think Mike Vrabel,
middle level, like middle range or short range or deep balls where you're talking about inconsistencies where the ball is short?
Yeah, no, that's an important clarification. I'd say the intermediate stuff, Blaine, is where I've seen it the most. It's also important for me to mention, though, because of what Rhett said. I'm on the air till a certain time during practice, so I'm seeing about half of this every day. I want to make sure that I clarify that, but just based on what I'm able to see. Charles London is as important as any coach on that staff this year, the new quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator, because he has a lot of interesting questions to help them solve. And certainly Mike Vrabel thinks he's the guy for the job.
Well, I know, Rhett just mentioned Fulton's in the building, but I guess he's just not interested in practicing?
My understanding is healthy. I know that the comments that were made about him and David Long at the end of the year by the head coach were not received necessarily. Didn't quite roll off the way that Mike might have expected him to, or something like that. And we saw that evident when David Long's media availability with the Miami media after the fact, talking about their durability. Christian Fulton was not here in Tennessee for the first week of OTAs because he was specifically working with a trainer in South Florida whose emphasis is on durability and those soft tissue injuries. So we weren't given an explanation as to why Fulton was out there. He's healthy, to the best of my knowledge. So I can't give you only Christian Fulton can answer that. And at what point we see Christian Fulton to answer that question remains to be seen. But he wasn't, important to note that he wasn't the only DB who wasn't out there yesterday, Blaine.
Right.
We did not see Amani Hooker. We did not see Sean Murphy-Bunting. Right. And obviously Farley, who's still working on his health at this time.
But was Vrabel asked that question why Fulton wasn't out there?
I believe so. I need to go back and review it specifically to see what he said, but I know we weren't given any extensive explanation.
Well, with Buck Reising from the Buck Reising Show.
Buck, that's the other thing is we're talking about storylines heading into this mandatory minicamp. I think that's another one, and it involves the secondary with Christian Fulton, who is in the final year of his rookie deal. I believe now the lone draft pick left from the 2020 draft that some would like to forget. But he's got a lot to prove in terms of training and those things, which sounds like he's been doing some different stuff in an effort to stay on the field and contribute in a secondary that certainly would need him.
Yeah, I mean, Roger McCreary was the best corner for the Titans last year just by nature of availability, and Roger's a good player and seems to be an ascending player and somebody who will work well within the system, even though I know he wanted to improve on his work in dime and nickel situations specifically, he mentioned to us. But Fulton has a ton to prove, right? He is a good player. He's a talented player. He's anything. He's far from proven. He is not we don't have a top corner, I think, necessarily until such time as one establishes themselves. And that door is still wide open as far as I'm concerned, with Farley, with Molden, and Molden playing some safety now, with Fulton and McCreary. They don't, for as much draft capital as they've dumped into that position, the returns on that can't be the 32nd ranked passing defense. And I know there's a great many reasons for why that was, health notwithstanding. But Fulton, I was disappointed to not see him out there, to be honest with you. And listen, it's voluntary. They say it's voluntary. We know it's voluntary. The rules say it's voluntary, but I can't help but be a little disappointed in not seeing him out there, given everything that we all know is on the line for him, and a job and contract opportunity that's very, very much there for the taking, and a team that's going to have that kind of money to spend next season if all things stand pat right now. So I want to. It's like Traylon Burks, right? I need to see him play more games, and the last 2 seasons for Christian Fulton have been difficult to manage. It sounds like he's at least making the effort to do the different things that are being called into question. Whether that ends up benefiting him this year or not, obviously, remains to be seen.
Buck, I want to ask you something specifically about the structure of this offseason. It's something that Mike Vrabel's done differently this year. And I think it was a smart move on his part. He's always looking at ways to maximize time in having those guys in the building. And just that's what the way this is scheduled. Typically, the mandatory minicamp is about the third week in the month of June, and then they head to the 4 Winds for 6 weeks and go to vacations, do whatever, and come back and get ready for training camp. This year, it's earlier. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, June 6th through the 8th. And that means that there are some organized team activities on the back end of this. So typically, I guess what I'm trying to say is on that third day of the minicamp is when it's like, oh, you guys did good the first 2 days, you're gone. See ya. Well, that's not going to be the case this time. Now, whether they practice or not, they may have a team building day, go bowling, do whatever. But I think it's interesting how he did that and then had the OTAs wrap around on the other side of it so that he can have another week and change of these guys in the building to get this team acclimated with install and getting ready for training camp.
Yeah, Mac and I were talking about this earlier, and I think it's a good idea in concept, and we'll see whether he ends up liking it or not. But I'm curious to see how it ends up benefiting them, or if it ends up benefiting them in the ways that he thinks it might. It's I think about like not having that finish line element to mandatory minicamp, right? To get the most amount of intensity, the most amount of effort and energy when you have everybody together on the field, when they know that the next part of it, okay, you can be here if you want to. We're going to still be doing stuff. We have all the time in the world with the rookies. If you're a new guy, if you're a free agent, if you're a tryout player, here's your opportunity. But when we're in here for mandatory minicamp, you know that this is it. And so I like the approach, and we'll see what ends up happening with it. But I'm sure he'll be asked plenty of questions about it.
So what's the date on clarity from 6th to the 8th, and then what's the following week?
There'll be another couple of OTAs then.
But we don't know the dates.
I don't know them off the top of my head.
I heard the conversation of when it typically is, but I wanted to know what the dates were today. We're talking about how it could be beneficial. Well, we need to know the dates. I mean, like, I want to know if it's close to the training camp. Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Well, I'm pretty sure that these last OTAs are going to be in the same window of time that the mini camp would have been, which is, 16th, 18th, somewhere in there. Gotcha. And then that still is about a 6-week window between then and when they start the training camp season. So all he's done is shuffled the mini camp and brought it inside and kind of sandwiched it around some OTAs, because again, the OTAs are voluntary, so not everybody's going to be at those last couple of ones. Somebody may still skip. But I think for the first year, to Buck's point, the first year guys, the rookies and those things, I think you'll see a lot of guys stick around to get some work in and then head off for vacation.
Well, I mean,
I think that's where they're at. They can't infringe upon that 6-week window for all teams, Blaine. So it's just him flip-flopping the weeks that they were doing minicamp versus OTAs last year.
Got you. We're on with Buck Reising from the Buck Reising Show. I know we haven't talked a lot about this, but, how do the inside linebackers, Rhett, favorite position, look out there with really, I'm not going to say 2 new guys, but, now they're going to be 2 new starters for the beginning of the season. Let's say that.
Yeah, and whether that's Monty Rice or Aziz Al-Shaair, as all of us feel like it's probably projected at this point, or whether that competition kind of bears itself out in different ways, because we know that they added a good many inside linebackers, right? It's a couple of different guys in free agency, and now returning Chance Campbell, who missed the entirety of the season. Dr. Gibby's still hanging around. Rice and Al-Shaair are working out there primarily right now. Monty's biggest question is, can you keep him on the field in passing situations right now? there's restrictions on what we're able to report, but it looks like Cunningham's role will be occupied by Monty Rice in theory, or at least that's where they're repping them at this point. And I'll share more the David Long in this circumstance. I think that what we've seen from Azeez Al-Shaair on film makes me feel totally confident that he's able to execute the role that he projects to fill. And within the defense, these guys seem very comfortable, given that there's a lot of vets out there. The cornerback room is young, obviously, but the defensive line, the secondary, you've got a lot of vets out there. You've got a returning defensive coordinator who's very well regarded in Shane Bowen. The defense has been, I think, in a way that a lot of these drills and a lot of these 7-on-7 situations favor the offense at this time of year, especially when there's no pads and obviously no tackling in practice. We've seen the defense make a lot of plays against the pass in particular, and the inside linebackers have been a big part of that. So I think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic, even though David Long is a really, really good player that I know a lot of Titans fans are sorry to see not be retained.
No doubt about it. I guess one more thing, Tier Tart, tender, extension, not a lot of mention, but underrated player. Where do you think that'll go?
Man, he certainly. I appreciate that he values himself, right, and also at the same time, right. I mean, because in his situation, he's obviously he is an undrafted rookie free agent, but his talent level is not that of an undrafted rookie free agent. We know, I'm sure I don't have to tell Rhett about his background, where he was recruited, and then how he ended up at a FAU. But I think that for Tart, the team appreciates that he's out there anyway when he doesn't have to be, when he's got a certain amount of money committed to him anyway, but is not signed the specific tender that was offered to him. It seems to be trending well in that direction, but he's made it a point that he's not willing to necessarily settle for. I believe it's the figure is $4 million.
That's
this
correct.
Year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, on the tender that he's been offered. So, I mean, he is a playmaker, right? There was a time when this team was 7-3, and Tier Tart was leading them in passes defense. This dude is.
Hey, Buck, I know he was, but come on, man. That is why he's not here. That is not why he's here. Hey, man, come on, man.
No, it's not why he's here. But I don't think that's unimportant. It's easy to laugh at the fat guy who's tipping passes and making interceptions. But I love the hustle. I love the talent. I love the player.
No doubt.
And I think they would do well to keep him.
Yeah, no doubt. We're with Buck Reising from the Buck Reising Show.
All right, crack research team tells me that the wraparound, the back end of these OTAs, it's the June 12th through the 15th, and then once that commences, then here they go. So that's what's happening after the mandatory minicamp. Buck, we're going to let you have your weekend and get rolling. Thanks for the time. Appreciate you being on Blaine and Mickey. You can always hear him every week with the fine work he does, A to Z content, and certainly here on 104.5 The Zone from 10 a to 1 p Monday through Friday. Have a good weekend.
Appreciate it, Buck.
Always my pleasure, boys. Enjoy your weekend, too. See you.
All right. Buck Reising joining us here. When we continue, we're going to talk about some of the undrafted rookie free agents that you should keep an eye on in minicamp and certainly heading into training camp that will happen a few weeks after. As we continue, it's Blaine and Mickey right here on 104.5 The Zone. Happy Friday. Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone. Rhett, Bryan in for Mickey Ryan. And say hello to all watching on Zone TV, Facebook Live. What else we got? Twitch. And certainly YouTube TV. Say hello. And also everyone chatting in the F&M Bank chat. Say hello to all those out there. Eric White, hello to you. Hope you're doing well. So I teased it before when we went to the break about some undrafted free agents. That's what I'm trying to learn more about now because these are the guys that you're going to be focused on in the preseason part of this and the training camp part of this, that guys are trying to latch on to a position. And, they got some good preferred free agents in this.
It's like preferred walk-on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they started calling them, is PFAs.
This is really funny.
But there's
to me, man.
there's some. The list that they have in there is wide receiver Gavin Holmes from Baylor, Eric Garrer, the cornerback from Louisiana Lafayette, cornerback Amani Marsh from Washington State, L.J. Davis, a corner from Northern Arizona, James Empey, a center from BYU. Shaquille Brown from Troy, a D tackle, wide receiver Jacob Copeland from Maryland, Trayshawn Harrison, another wide receiver from Oregon State, safety Matt Jackson from Eastern Kentucky, cornerback Stephen Jones Jr. from Appy State, safety Tyreek Jones.
Better watch him.
And that's one we're going to circle back to here in just a second. You see, there's.
I don't have the list. I just know players.
Oh yeah, safety Tyreek Jones from Boise State, quarterback Kendall Anthony from Baldwin Wallace, a Division III school, if I'm not mistaken. Charles McClellan, running back from Cincinnati, defensive end T.K. McClendon, Eastern Kentucky via LSU. Caleb Murphy, we've spoken about, the pass rusher from Ferris State who set all kinds of records.
Oh, yeah, even in draft process.
Yeah. John Ojukwu, the tackle from Boise State. Linebacker Otis Reed, the fourth from Ole Miss. Linebacker Thomas Rush from Minnesota. And kicker Trey Wolf from Texas Tech. So I'm going to go back to the one you stopped me on, and this is one of the ones I was going to talk about, is Stephen Jones Jr., cornerback from Appy State. 5'10", 185, 188. I think at his pro day ran a 4.51, 35-inch vert. Tied for the Sun Belt lead in the regular season with 15 pass breakups in 2022. So he's around the ball a lot. 45 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 1 quarterback sack on the season. And, oh, yeah, before we start talking about his size, he can play teams. And that's the way you can latch on to this roster in any in the NFL, is by being good at that. Blocked, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of punts in college. He's one I'm starting to dial in on. Why did you pay it? You said you know players'
I saw
name.
that we signed him, and I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah.
You have the list, and I haven't been at any of the practice, so I'm basing it off of what I saw in college. And when we start doing the draft process, naturally I hone in on all the defensive backs, and I watched him actually play, and I thought he was a really solid player. I was just curious, like, I can't wait to see him out there, if he's an outside or is he an inside guy because of his height. 5'10", 185 tells you, this new day and age, he may be a slot guy, but that mean he can't play outside. He might have been groomed outside, and you can still make plays, and that's why he had a lot of PBUs, is because he's going against the 6'2" guy on the outside, and he can't actually get his claws on there, but he can actually make plays on the ball. So you can beat people in numerous ways with your quick feet, technique, especially when you're a shorter guy, as I would know better than anything else. And then, and he's a smaller frame guy, 185. So then you say, oh, okay, well, he can play the slide. Then you go 185. You got to be a little bit
on the lean side,
right,
yeah,
to play in there, because you're glorified linebacker on the run positions, as far as you're holding outside leverage, you're blitzing. So that's why a lot of guys like Fulton, I'm not blitzing. I got to be in there. It's a lot of traffic up in there, So certain guys kind of fit that mold. So I'm interested to see how he's kind of built. Is he more of an outside guy? His size says nickel slot, but is he durable enough to do that?
That's the big question.
But when you say special teams, though, tells me he has. Now, if he plays special team, he won't have the durability issues, because special teams at that size, if you're running down on kickoff, punt, you're making tackles. That's somewhat similar than playing the slot, because you're going to have a lot of contact. So and App State usually has some really good DBs. I mean, just through their time.
Sure.
Over the last handful of years, they've always had one or two good guys that get a shot at the league. So I'm really interested in seeing what he brings to the table out there and how he matches up when you see him on an NFL field with other wide receivers that are looking like giants now and not
Sure.
just a good player in the FCS in Appalachian State.
Right.
So-
No, and he by all indication, he is just a scrappy, not afraid of anything.
Oh,
go at it.
that's exactly
The
what I
dog.
see.
There's a dog in there, I think, is what I'm saying.
I saw him get a pick. It was a night game. I was watching him. I kind of always like watching App State. I don't know whenever they play because they got some guys that can really fly around. I remember they had this defensive end too. I think defensive end lineman. He might have got drafted. He's pretty good too on defense. But it'll be interesting. One thing about Vrabel, I have to say, is he's a no-nonsense coach when he brings in undrafted players. And we were all joking, I was anyway, about, bringing in undrafted. More guys than not are making his rosters undrafted probably per other teams than any other team in the NFL. And I don't know if it's true or not or if that's becoming a trend. But I think he's had like 2 or 3 guys make it pretty much every year he's been. Just think about we haven't even talked about the running back that made it last year. Is he even at practice? Is he even there, or is he somewhere else? What was the guy's name? I can't even remember.
Talking about Julius Chestnut?
Yeah,
he's still there.
Yeah.
Big 3-6, he's still there.
But we're talking about Haskins.
But where
Spears,
is he?
Right.
Where is he in the deck of
But he
shuffle
made
cards?
the actual roster, undrafted,
That's right.
by the way. And so that was Mickey's, love, passion in training camp.
Training camp crush.
Training camp crush. That's right.
Yeah, I call it love, passion. But
That's all right.
Yeah, it was.
We know what you mean.
There's different guys every year, I think, that have a shot that some people don't think will have a shot. To your point about this list of undrafted guys, sure, a lot of people will be watching the wide receiver position, but that doesn't mean any of those guys are making it. I kind of like some of those guys. I think some of them should have got drafted, to be honest.
Sure.
But maybe, they not in the right place, right time. A lot of things have to break your way to make a roster when you're undrafted and get your opportunity to shine. So I'm sure who you think you've been at practice, who's kind of stood out. I have not been at any of the practices.
Yeah.
We're on air.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's take a break, and in hour 2 of Blaine and Mickey, I'll continue through this list because I've got 3 or 4 guys that I've got a star beside that I'm really starting to dig in more. And one of those is a safety from Boise State, Tyreek Jones. He's very intriguing to me because
6'2".
of size. Yeah, and got an 81-inch wing.
Oh, I did
Blaine,
my
you
homework.
know, you do your homework. So we'll do that on the other side. We'll do that on the other side. Rhett, Bryan, and for Mickey Ryan, it's Blaine and Mickey here on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 2 o'clock. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. SEC presidents voted on a new scheduling format Thursday at SEC spring meetings in Destin. The league doing away with divisions and playing an 8-game regular season in 2024. Another vote will come down the road to determine the long-term future of SEC scheduling. The league goes up to 16 teams in 2024 with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. College baseball NCAA regional action underway today. Currently in progress at the Clemson Regional. Lipscomb trails Clemson 6-5. Clemson at bat with 2 outs in the bottom of the 6th. Tennessee also in the Clemson Regional. They will take on Charlotte coming up at 5 p.m. You can hear the Vol Network call starting at 6 after 3HL right here on the Zone. Vanderbilt home all weekend hosting the Nashville Regional at Hawkins Field. They play Eastern Illinois tonight at 7. College softball, the Tennessee Lady Vols, after beating Alabama 10-5, continue their Women's College World Series run tomorrow against defending champs Oklahoma at 2 p.m. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals drops the puck Saturday night in Vegas. The Golden Knights facing the Florida Panthers at 7 p.m. And Nashville Soccer Club looks to continue a run of 7 straight games unbeaten in MLS play. They hit the road taking on FC Dallas Saturday night. Nashville star Hani Mukhtar named the MLS Player of the Month for May. Pre-game coverage starts on the Zone at 7 tomorrow. Kickoff at 7:30. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour 2, Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone, your home for the Titans and the Vols. Not Mickey Ryan. I'm Rhett Bryan. Mickey out today, enjoying some St. Louis Cardinals baseball up in the Midwest. So, Blaine, as we crank into hour 2 here, we were discussing at the end of last hour some of the free agents, undrafted free agents that are in camp right now and what they now call preferred free agents that kind of people are jockeying for on the phones after the draft is over. And some of these guys get some pretty nice change to come on as a signing bonus because they're getting, it's like a bidding war.
More signing bonus than I got.
I mean, it's
30 years later.
It's amazing what some of these, $75,000, $100,000, whatever. I mean, just crazy stuff.
Oh, that double what I got as a signing bonus.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, but they were undrafted.
Right.
I was last round, though. But
still, and I know, you're right, 30 years ago, but you're still here sitting going, that's still a lot of money.
Yeah, they could at least get by for a year if they don't make it.
Yeah, because, you got a team meal, you got gear, you can live off the land, so to speak. Yeah. So
if you focus, it's not that hard. Hey man, I got one shot, and they gave me $100,000 signing bonus. It's really like 65 after taxes.
Yeah,
you living in something probably they're paying for, and all you doing is going to work out for 65. That they providing you meals,
right?
You
got gear, and and if you stay somewhere close to the facility, you're not burning a lot of gas or transportation. I mean. It's the whole thing is you've gotten past the interview. You're in the building. Now you got to figure out how to stay. That's it.
One shot. You better give it all you got.
So
you're not going to get another one.
A couple of Boise State Broncos that were picked up after the draft. One we mentioned before the break in Tyreek Jones, 6'2", 205, safety out of Boise State. 4-year starter for the Broncos on defense. Converted to nickel back for them in 2022. Played in all 12 games for them last year, 34 tackles, 4.5 for loss, 3 PBUs, and an interception. But he's a big, long dude for that spot and has nearly an 81-inch wingspan and has decent quicks in short area. I think I can't remember what he ran 40-wise at his pro day, but or actually at the Combine because he was at the Combine.
So he was expecting to get drafted.
Yeah, he was. Sure. He was at the Combine, Tyreek Jones was. And then his teammate at Boise State, John Ojukwu, who was another, I think he was a 5th or 6th-year guy because we had so many COVID guys in there that got extra eligibility. 6'6", 315, all Mountain West first team in 2022. The only Bronco to start all 14 games on offense. And I think his last 39 starts, I think, were at left tackle. He had 20 some odd before that. He had 2 years at right tackle and the last 3 at left for them. But yeah, so he's played on both sides of the line, and he's just
only
somebody.
the guys that stood out to you, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm starting to pay more attention to because, like I don't know if these guys are going to make the team. Like you said, they're in the building, got one shot, and certainly these are somebody that could end up being on this roster. And in fact,
And we are, by the way, we're on shorts and T-shirts. And
that's
helmet.
it's
So
the
that's
underwear Olympics. That's right.
So sometimes it changes. Trust me, I've
That's
seen
right.
it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. So especially when we're talking about a guy in the trenches too, offense, defensive lineman guys. You just never know in any position really. But
you think about guys that ended up making this roster that were undrafted. You talked about it last hour. And Julius Chestnut from Sacred Heart is one of those. Sam Okawanu, who played at Maryland, is another. There's a couple of these, and I'm like,
he gives you a fair shot.
It really does. It really does.
Appreciate
and,
that for sure.
some of it was, injury and needing somebody who has been in your camp, but some of it was earned. So, and we were just talking about Tierre Tart, who apparently signed some kind of a medical waiver to be able to participate in these OTAs, and I'm assuming minicamp next week. But yet he has not signed his restricted free agent tender, which I believe is around $4 million. And look at how valuable. Look at how valuable he has become in his time as a Titan. He's gotten better every year, and he's. First of all, he's a funny guy, funny guy, great personality. But he's really, that's the whole thing in this is cultivating those things that you can see and getting your hands on him coaching wise. And, he's a great story in this. Well,
first of all, he's a real agile, athletic big man.
Yeah.
You cannot take
had
it
a
away.
basketball background.
Right. So people look at him and go, oh, man, you got to watch this guy run and move. The first notice for me was when I think it was Vrabel really getting after him. And my whole analogy of that was coaches aren't yelling at you unless they believe in you. And so that was the first time. And he kept doing it daily, really, because he was trying to bring something out of him that maybe he didn't believe he even had. And this is his rookie year. And so when you're looking at it from a coach's perspective and why they do that, it's because they see something there. It's when the coach doesn't say something to you is when you've made me be in trouble.
Yeah. You've flown so far under the radar, you're not worthy of a blip, so to speak. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just remember some people reporting that he was sorry and horrible and that people were yelling at him every day and that he's not going to make the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I don't look at it that way. Seen it the total opposite way numerous times.
Sure. No, I think what you say is totally valid in terms of, because Mike Vrabel said it a million times. He said, I consider myself just a teacher until they get in here. And then when I'm able to work with them, that's when I become a coach. Mm-hmm. And God knows how many times we've seen him put on that vest and pop pads with guys working with some of the big men. And I've seen him doing that with several guys already in this offseason. Jacob Copeland is another one that was a wide receiver from Maryland, 6 foot 202, was a combine invite, was not drafted, led the team.
How did he do there at the combine? Do we know his time?
Stand by.
Yeah, did he run a 4.5?
I think
was
you're
watching
right.
him. I think he's a 4.4 guy, but I really watched some film and went and watched some film on him, so I can have a little bit of knowledge on him. A really good player. He seemed like he underachieved based off of his numbers. And when I say numbers, I'm talking about his athletic numbers. 4.4, is vertical and what all those things were. So it just made me dig deeper because I'm saying, well, dang, he should have. You can go through his stats. He should have, to me, been targeted more, had more numbers. And so then when I watch him play, I see why he did. It wasn't because of that he didn't have the ability. He just wasn't polished. He was real raw. And when I say that at receiver, I'm talking about just polished at route running instead of just relying on your athletic ability to, perform and do great. And that's really all I saw that he needed. So I'm interested to see how he looks live when I watch him. See if he's gotten some of that training, because a lot of times the guys get to these training facilities when they go to the combine and their agents send them, and then they kind of polish up on the route running because you can get away with that in college. But they didn't target him as much as I thought he should have, and I don't know why. Maryland had a good team, so I don't know why he didn't. I think they had another good receiver as well as they had really two good defensive backs.
Yes, they did, and Tua's baby brother slinging it around.
It was the quarterback, yep.
Yeah, in 12 games, 26 for 376, hauled in a pair of touchdowns.
Catches. See? And those don't jump off. And so then you go say, well, then how did he get invited to the combine? Based off those numbers. Do you know how many people had 30 catches at least?
Sure.
In the country?
Yeah.
And so obviously
they saw
the NFL,
something or he wouldn't.
Yeah, right. They wanted to see more, so they wanted to see him up against the other guys and see him running. And sometimes that does happen. You just don't get targeted a lot. Or did he have an injury and got nicked up or was in and out of a game or it was soft tissue or whatever it may have been.
So here's the tail of the tape from Indianapolis. 5'11", 201, arms 31 and 5/8, hands 9 and 5/8, 40 and 4.42, first 10 in 1.51. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
33-inch vert, 10.7 broad, 3-cone drill at 7.01, short shuttle at 4.47, 20 reps at 225.
20 reps at 225 is really good for a receiver. 33 is on the average to below average for me.
On the vert?
Yeah, so that's kind of a red flag. And it doesn't match up with his 10. See what you just showed me explosiveness with the 10.
And then
I can't see you get up off the ground.
Yeah.
And go get it.
Can you just go?
So just remember,
you can't go vertically. You can just
but you could just go straight. See, that's what it just told me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if those numbers really are actually true to his game. And so then that's what makes you then want to delve in and dive deeper into who he actually is as a player.
Yeah.
So, because it doesn't matter. You say, oh, he's explosive off the line. And as a DB, that is a huge because you can get up on my cushion. We call it the cushion real quick. And then all of a sudden, I feel like you running 4.2 to me and not 4.4.
Yeah, you're covering CJ2K all of a sudden.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I'm a really watch him because I want to see how much he's progressed as an actual route runner. And to me, to be successful in this league as a wide receiver, no matter what size you are, 5'10", 5'11", 6'3", 6'4", it will be your route running, period. That's what's going to carry you to longevity. And from the defensive side, it's technique because you're not going to be the best player on the field anymore. They're just not going to happen.
Right.
There's going to be guys better than you on both sides of the ball and on your own team. And you may be at the last, but your technique and route running can make you stand apart. And with all the guys, and so you want to show that, especially if you long and athletic and big, and they're all next thing you know, like, whoa, this dude can run routes. So then now you've hit all the buttons, and there's no reason why you won't be on the roster. They'll find a way to make you on the roster.
Yeah. Well, Jacob Copeland is interesting to me because our friend Justin Mello, who appears on your show frequently, did an interview with Jacob Copeland recently, and he said there was 32 wide receivers drafted. I wrote down every one of their names. Oh, yeah. Like, he's like, look, everybody's got a fire in their belly when they come into this thing, but I'm like, okay. He's taking notes. All right. Keeping receipts.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're young, I did the same thing. You definitely want to keep notes because in reality, as a player who's actually better than you. You do. You may not ever admit it, but when you watch
inwardly,
them,
you would,
I could see how they could, he's a little this or he's a little bigger or he's a little faster or, you're going to give guys their props. But then if it's even, you're never giving that guy. If you think we are the same and you played against him and and then you go ask your DBs, what do you think about that dude? And go, I don't know if he's better than you. Yeah. And so you're going to get an honest opinion. So you're going to, whatever you need to motivate you. And then once you're in, then it's about being the best version of you. That's it. You're never going to forget that, and that'll get you in the league and the motivation and all that. But after that, once you're in, now it's about being the best version of you. That's it. It's it.
And I think the other part of that is, it reminds me of how much pressure there is on you guys. But I think the other part of it is just trying to figure out how to be a pro. And you've got veteran examples there, and how to carry yourself around the building and meetings and those things. And I think when you're balancing all that, it's got to be overwhelming.
It just depends on your mental makeup.
Sure.
I think in this world of sports of the athlete, it's a part of the process, and I think all the new coaches, Vrabel, and when I say new coaches, with the new young generation of players coming in, that's why I say new coaches, in that you're dealing with a different style of an athlete now who probably hasn't had the mental grind that you need to have to make it. So they're going to have to make a decision for themselves.
Sure.
How hard do you want this, and how hard do you want to work and give it your one shot? Especially, I'm talking about the undrafted guys, but even the drafted guys as well. So how mentally tough are you, to be honest? And I think that's what Vrabel, to me, is trying to do when he was talking about the workouts for the offseason.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to. He's talking about the mental toughness and fortitude. When the going gets tough and you think you working, you got to turn it up one more notch. So it'll be interesting to see, where some guys start rising. So when you get the pads on, oh, you looking great in this shorts and T-shirts and helmet. Oh, man, I'm going to dominate, man. Yeah. I was that guy that didn't look so good in shorts and T-shirts. But when we put on them pads, it was a whole different ballgame.
I saw that firsthand.
Yeah, so it was a different ballgame.
Yes, it was.
So, you just never know until you see it. I mean, and so you got to see it, and then you got to bring the mental side of it and capabilities of what they can handle. And can they handle more? I think it's more mental once you get to this level than anything else, because everybody's a really great athlete.
Yep.
So what makes you different?
Right.
So those are the things, whether it's being in shape, top shape, to being the most conditioned, or being the best version of you, and understanding who you are and working on your weaknesses. See, in college, you ran from your weaknesses because you could always win based off your athleticism. But in the pros, you better run to your weaknesses and get them right and get them tight, or you won't be in for long. That's why they call it NFL, and that stands for not for
long.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be not for long as we continue the second hour here of Blaine and Mickey. On the way, SEC spring meetings and scheduling changes and eliminating conferences in the Southeastern Conference. It's got the ire of a lot of SEC fans and one Lucas Panzica. We're going to talk to him and you about that when we come back. It's Blaine and Mickey. Rhett, Bryan filling in for Mickey Ryan here in your home for the Titans and the Vols 104.5. The
Bridges on fire.
Hour 2 of Blaine and Mickey flying by on a Friday afternoon on 104.5 The Zone. Mickey out, Rhett, Bryan in. The Hitman alongside here for the ride. Getting you ready for the weekend. Here we go. So, in spring meetings for the Southeastern Conference, it came out late yesterday afternoon from Sandestin Beach, Florida, that the SEC has established a scheduling format for the 2024 football season. Of course, we know in conjunction with Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC at that particular time, which is pretty wild to think that the Red River rivalry will be in the SEC now, which is that's a great game anyway.
Oh, that's a great game, but that's just crazy to think that is now the SEC.
Isn't that nuts?
In 2024. And
wow. I still hadn't gotten used to Texas A&M being in.
Come on, Lucas, you're an SEC fan, man. What are your thoughts?
The Cotton Bowl now an SEC enterprise.
Yeah, how about that? Sorry. So here's the deal. So just for a 1-year deal, they have a scheduling format. And as they continue to finalize a long-term strategy, as a 16-team conference was announced on Thursday. So they have eliminated conference divisions in this, but that in this 1-year schedule, SEC teams will play 8 conference games plus 1 required opponent from a Power 5 school during the 2024 season when Oklahoma and Texas joined the league. This got the ire of a lot of SEC fans up, including Lucas Panzica. I'll let you have the floor, sir.
Well, I've calmed down on it a little bit.
A little bit.
Why is that?
Well, so in the whole lead up to the vote between 8 or 9, just the growing narrative in support of an 8-game format was starting to really frustrate me because 9 games had been the overwhelming favorite because it's just the right thing to do. It just means more, right? So more of your product would be a 9-game format. But then there's noise around teams that would support the 8-game format for a better shot at bowl eligibility. There's Nick Saban talking about, well, I don't know how they would give us Tennessee, LSU, and Auburn in a 9-game format. Suddenly Alabama shifting over to the side of 8 games. But Greg Sankey talking about the SEC needs to be at the forefront of college football, I'm sure is a little bit frustrated when he said the conference at the forefront of college football does not need to sit still, and they quite literally just sat still by kicking the can down the road, saying we're going to play 8 games in 2024, and then we'll revisit it. I think 9 games is inevitable. I think it's going to happen. Whether ESPN ponies up the extra cash for it, which is obviously what they want, that I don't know, but I think Texas and Oklahoma coming in, when they do get a vote, Texas has already made it clear they are in support of 9 games. It's just the right thing to do. So I do think 9 games is going to happen eventually. I guess I'm just perturbed, to use one of Blaine's terms, at how long it's taking to land that plane.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I don't know too many people who would actually really disagree with that. But I want you to take your fan hat off real quick, briefly for a second. This was a business decision by Sankey. And reason why is because imagine this. If I move to 9 and I'm still getting paid for 8, what's going to incentivize ESPN to then pay me for 9?
Right.
That's what this decision was about. Just that simple. Nothing other than that. And he had to then convince him, hey, you know what? We just may want to stay at 8 because they said they're not going to pay us more for 9. And if we do it now, then when we want to get more money, they're going to be like, but y'all been doing 9 for this price. See? So that's why, as much as it
Money makes the
total
world go
sense
round.
to go to 9,
Yeah.
and it will,
Yeah.
as Lucas said.
Yeah.
But until they get the opportunity to open the window to more pay, because this is all about business. You don't get that high in the ranking and be the SEC commissioner at the top of the totem pole without being a sharp cookie.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So you had to convince him to hold back, will it back there, Nick Saban.
I think there's a lot to what you're saying, Blaine, because money, we know, rules the world. It makes it all go around, and that's what everything's based on. So, yeah, I would buy what you're putting down right there. The other thing I'm thinking about is, the way they put this, that the requirement is you have to have 1 opponent from a Power 5 school. So I think that is the window for you to continue to have big rivalry games. Like if you're Florida State, Florida, that's a big deal.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a way to have that. But the other thing that I'm
I thought you was going to try to still help up us low hanging fruit guys, like Ball State, so we can collect that $1 million.
And see, that's the other part. That's the part where I wonder where this is going, because those opportunities are shrinking now because of this.
That's what's going to happen.
I mean,
here's what they're going to start doing. I'm going to give you the prediction. It's not going to be that kind of money. They're going to start playing the Ball States in spring ball. That's what's going to happen, because they're going to be able to give them money, and then they're going to give them the opportunity to still make money. So let's say if they gave them $500,000 to come down here and scrimmage, really are twos.
I think that's fair.
And then, guess what? Guess what? Then UT's going to say, hey, let's go see them play Ball State. They're going to whoop a knot on them, because then in their mind, as a fan, they're still playing a game. They're still playing an actual game.
Right.
Instead, it's a spring game. You're playing each other.
Right.
They're coming up with all these.
It's
different
not the
formulas.
homecoming game where there's a win and a loss deal.
So that's where I see it going. It may never happen. It's a pipe dream, but I don't know where else they can go, because those guys eventually are going to get left in the dust when they may go to, maybe just 2 power conferences or just 4 power conferences, and they're all getting all the big dough. And where does that leave everybody else?
And Lucas and Blaine, that's where I think all of this is heading, and it's no secret. But I think this thing continues to expand, and the Power 5 becomes the Power 3 or 2 or what. It's gonna, because it's been talked about for years, the possibility of a lot of Power 5 schools basically seceding from the NCAA and starting their own stuff, because NCAA rules have gotten silly enough, in recent history, with guys not being able to have meals at the chow line and, just silly stuff. But the other part of it that is so intriguing to me is this NIL stuff peppered in, because, how many people have left Colorado? I think he's had 50 transfers since Prime took over, and he hadn't even coached a regular season game yet. All of this just, look, the NFL rules North America in sports, but God, college football is right there. Man, this just gets more interesting by the day to me.
Well, I like some of these comments. Some people just don't want to lose the rivalries. Also, somewhat self-preservation by Sankey, reading the numbers with the OU and Texas voting and trying to avoid the infighting, because guess what? You didn't have those 2 universities actually in this process of voting, did we?
No, they were there. They were in Destin, but they do not get a vote until 2024 spring meetings. And with this 8-game format, with this little stopgap they have, it's not the one permanent opponent, 1-7, that they would have as an option long term. They're just going to put out a schedule. There's going to be a schedule release show, just like the NFL on June 14th, where they're just going to figure out a schedule with divisions out the window, and they're going to try to preserve as many of these rivalries as possible in this 1 year. So Tennessee can still play Alabama and Vanderbilt and potentially Florida, maybe Kentucky. It's a jigsaw puzzle, but some of those rivalries, for the most part, should be preserved for that 2024 year.
And when it appears that the Vanderbilts and Missouris and all those rivalry games, that they're all really partners, for the low-hanging fruit in the SEC.
Lucas, do you think, and I'm going to ask you the same thing, Blaine, do you think that with knowing that they were going to this expanded schedule, that the elimination of divisions within the conference were inevitable? They were going to go away.
I've been screaming that for the mountaintops forever.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I don't like being saddled with, these are the teams you play every year, and you get to play 1 to 2 teams cross-divisional. It doesn't make sense that, Tennessee can go a decade without playing Mississippi State. I'm completely on board with that.
I hated it when I really paid attention. Naturally, I grew up in Big Ten country. When they used to have Michigan and Ohio State on the same side, I'm like, well, dang, the 2 best teams are not playing each other in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
See, no, you can't. Right. No, then you need to abandon that and just play your schedule, whatever your conference says your schedule is.
And as they expand the college football playoff format, I think this is smart on the SEC's part to kind of line with that, because you got to figure a lot of those SEC teams are going to be in an expanded college football playoff format.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just thinking about it down the road too, at the end of seasons and how it plays out with bowl season. But yeah, so there's a lot of folks that are dug in their heels and like, I'm losing them rivalry, and there's some you'll lose, there's some you gain, but at the end of the day, Blaine, you're right. It's money. It's all about the dollars.
Always. They eventually get there, just not in the time frame Lucas's wants.
Want it now.
He wants 9 games, and he
A lot of
wants it
people
like
do.
yesterday.
I'm with him though. Really, I really do too. But I can't believe what they said. Hey, I said, what is that a typo? Did they mess up with 8 and 9?
Think about this, though, guys, in terms of what these coaches are putting themselves through with the wild, wild west that is NIL. Like I saw and actually heard this on Sirius not long ago, where Nick Saban talked about they started looking at how much time they spend coaching. 44 weeks out of a 52-week year. They're working 7 days a week.
So I think Nick Saban said that to Peter Burns in that interview. Yeah, that was from Nick Saban.
Yeah. And it's only going to be more because, I mean, now that you've got an increased conference schedule like this and there's no divisions to clamor over, it's a slugfest. I mean, here we go.
It was actually, it could potentially burn out some of these coaches, and they start really leaking back into the NFL.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's like, because you're already working 44 weeks a year, 7 days a week.
And it's not just because people will look at that and say, well, I'll work 8 days a week for $7 million a year. But think about the assistants and the analysts and the film grunts that are working the same hours, the recruiting staffers.
And not making near that salary. That's exactly right.
It's just not sustainable.
I mean, it makes me tired just thinking about it. I mean, we work a lot of hours during the football season. I don't know. I'm not even involved in a game.
I'm just exhausted just hearing you guys talk about the 44. Man, what? Man, come on, man. Saban better, take it out of his allotted $12 million, man. Come on, bro.
How? But hey, he's not getting any younger. I mean, what is he? 72 now. I mean, how much longer?
1.5.
How much longer does he do this at that pace? I mean, we've seen guys coach, into their 80s, in spans of time, but
he'll be 72 on Halloween.
So there you 71.5.
Go. There it is. Yeah.
There it is. Price is right rules.
I think he's gonna keep going. The reason why I say that is because now he's not top of the hill right now. Kirby Smart is. So this is gonna be his ultimate last hurrah. When he gets back to the mountaintop, then he'll probably resign. I don't even know if he'll ever do it.
That's what I wonder about.
I can imagine him just going off in the sunset and winning the national title, and then he's done. Something is going to provoke him to be done.
Well, and the other part is he can double down and make a lot of money as a college analyst on television too.
Easy.
I mean, there's stacks of cash waiting for him on that. I mean, look at what potentially Tom Brady's going to get if he does indeed honor the contract with Fox and all that dough. I mean, you talk about payday now, and nobody's. In this case, for Saban, nothing to worry about, no NIL, nothing. And in Brady's case, nobody's coming after him in the pocket.
If that's the case, he should have been done that. But I think something about football gets his hair standing up on his arms, man. He loves it.
Blaine, we've seen it a million times.
He can't stop.
You absolutely cannot. You see some guys, it is so hard to walk away. Regardless of what your body's telling you if you're a player or what your mind's telling you if as a coach and you're like, hey, I'm a little slower response time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my body and the coach was telling me. So I had no choice.
Well, the bodies and coaches are telling me it's time to come back and wrap up Blaine and Mickey on this Friday afternoon. And on the way, brought to you by Tennessee Chattanooga Whiskey 91, we're going to call our shots and get ready to go into Friday afternoon and evening. It's Blaine and Mickey. We're wrapping it up next here on 104.5 The Zone. Eminence Front by The Who.
Wow.
That's a good way to end a Friday edition of Blaine and Mickey.
That must have been our new hire. Lucas wouldn't have picked that.
He likes The Who, though. I know Lucas knows Who songs.
Oh, man. He hasn't picked the entire time we've been working together. All this time.
No, that one was for Rhett. That one was for Rhett.
He may remember, I may have had a conversation with him. If I was a baseball player, that'd be my walk-up song.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Before I go to bat.
I saw
Eminence
them
Front.
at Bridgestone. When were they here? 3 years ago?
Yeah, I saw. Was that when the Nashville Symphony was with them?
Yes, Lucas Nelson opened for them.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, great show.
That's a great show all the way around. Absolutely. Rhett, Bryan in for Mickey Ryan as we wrap up this edition of Blaine and Mickey. As is custom on Friday afternoons, before we turn you over to 3HL, we have a time to call your shot. It's presented by Chattanooga Whiskey 91, an award-winning small batch bourbon and the only Tennessee high malt featuring tasting notes of toasted honey and graham cracker. It's a real winner, available at your local retailer. Blaine Bishop, Hitman number 23, what is your called shot this weekend?
Well, as always, I can never make a decision. So I'll just call a couple shots. We have not mentioned the Nuggets and Heat, and they will go up 2-0. I'm really close to saying they're going to sweep them, but I just want to give the Heat another shot because I think they're a mentally tough team. I just think they're overwhelmed. The Joker, as my favorite player, as I mentioned numerous times, is unstoppable, let alone the sharpshooting Murray, who's mid-range at the basket and three-point shooting just off the charts. They only shot 2 free throws, the Heat, man. So, yeah, they go night-night come Sunday. But my second shot is for yours truly right here in Tennessee, and that is Memphis, Tennessee, and that is Ja Morant. He's going to get suspended. The commissioner came out and spoke, but he's going to wait till after the finals are over, which won't be very long. A sweep probably is going to happen. So Ja Morant, I think, is going to get predicted probably about 25 to 50 games. Is that close enough? That's a big 25
It
game
sure
win.
could be. I mean, in a short
suspended.
window of time where he's had brandished a firearm, apparently, that could certainly be a thing. No doubt about it. Lucas, what's your called your shot?
That was a triple shot right there, Blaine. Nuggets win Sunday. They get the sweep and the Ja suspension. By the way, how do you guys feel about Adam Silver saying he's going to wait till after the finals? I feel like that just creates more around it. For me, just go ahead and give it out. The suspension for
I don't
Ja
know
Morant.
why you'd delay unless there's something
he
they're
didn't wanna
investigating. I don't know.
He didn't want to put out a story that would distract from the finals.
Yeah.
It'd be the topic of discussion and not the actual game.
Right.
But my shot's going to be the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers have won game 1 of every series with the exception of the first round against the Boston Bruins where they had to come back down from 3-1. But they're in Vegas for game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. This Panthers team has been so much fun to watch, just barely sneaking into the playoffs. They finished the regular season with the exact same amount of points as the Preds with 92. They barely got in there, down 3-1 against the Bruins, who won the President's Trophy. They had the best regular season in NHL history. Panthers rallied all the way back, and they've only lost, I think, 1 game since then. So I'm going Florida Panthers take game 1 away from Vegas, in Vegas, in the Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow night.
All right. My called shot is this, and I'm piggybacking off of Blaine. After what I witnessed last night in NBA Finals game number 1, Nikola Jokic, Bruce Brown, and his teammates, the Denver Nuggets, are going to win their first championship in franchise history in 6 games over the Miami Heat. The big guy, Jokic, he's ridiculous, man. And Bruce Brown has turned out to be such a good fit for them and where he fits in with the role of this team. They just seem to be rolling. I mean, heck, they were up 21 going into the fourth quarter and never really looked back. Jokic's game, as big a dude as he is, reminds me kind of an old throwback of remember when Arvydas Sabonis came over and started playing for the Portland Trail Blazers? He's a big man that can move like that and shoot from outside like that.
Point center. Yeah, he's a point center.
Yeah, point center.
Yeah,
and
I don't think he scored any points in the first quarter.
That's why I say 6 games, because I think Miami comes in and gets 1 in here somewhere. I don't know that they get swept. But Denver's never won it in the ABA, never won it in their time in the NBA. So they're going to do, I predict, in 6 game with a called shot of what Carmelo Anthony, Nene, and all the guys that have come through over the years, LaFonso Ellis back in the day, were not able to do.
What are you talking about? Kiki Vandeweghe.
There
Alex
it is.
English. Come on, man. You want to go back? Mabdul Barul Rauf.
Mahmoud
Is that how you do
Abdul
it?
Rauf.
I knew his name.
Chris Jackson
That's
from
who I would've
LSU playing with
Yeah,
old
they
Shaq
had
and
some
Tree Roberts.
Dudes, man. And people forget. Oh, Matumbo was there, too, with the finger
Oh,
wag.
the finger wagon. Absolutely.
Yeah, Lucas is like, who are these dudes? Let me look Google these dudes.
No, I could.
These
Every
dudes don't
other
even
name you said,
exist.
I know.
Every other name he says. In the F&M Bank chat, T.N. Berg is chiming in with your called shot on Ja Morant. He should be suspended. How can you be so dumb in less than 2 months?
Oh, man, he is past
It's not great decision making. Not great decision making by that
crickets.
young man. And that's a shame because, there's a franchise just down the road in Memphis that really could use his talents. I don't know. I think you're right, Blaine. I think it's a lengthy suspension considering.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Give some updates. Liscombe had 2 on, top of the 8th or bottom of one of the 2, and got out, and now are still losing 7-5 going into the 9th, top of the 9th. Yeah,
To the Clemson Tigers. Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
A lot going on this weekend.
We got one more shot. Since we're calling our shot. So yeah, that was.
All right, Vandy Man ad number 2 on the F&M Bank chat. Calling my shot. Denver is bringing out the brooms. He's calling for the sweep.
Yeah, the Heat missed a lot of shots that you would have thought they would have made normally. So I'm thinking they are, but at the same time, the Nuggets took the pedal off the metal there in the 4th. I still just think they're the better team. They can't deal with the Nuggets' length. They had issues with that. They only shot 2 free throws. Butler has to play great for them. And I just don't think he can do it. Quietly as kept, I think his ankle's really bothering him in these last couple games. The last game in Boston as well.
You're right. He needs to play out of his mind for them to have a chance in this.
Yes, I just don't. Bam played well. That was the first time I got to see him, but they're kind of giving him shots, forcing him to play. I think they must come up. The Heat must come up with a strategy to try to contain Murray. I just don't think you can stop the Joker. So to me, you must try to find defensively a way to contain him and then see if the rest of the team with Joker can beat you. That's the only way they got a shot. And I just don't think they'll be able to come up with a way. He's great off the dribble. He's great on moving without the ball, Murray. He can hit from every mid-range at the bucket as well. I mean, he had a couple dunks. And then they can't let Gordon start off like he's, one of the best players in the NBA.
Well, that's why I'm saying to Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is one of the keys to this thing. With him coming off the bench like that.
Too much offense. Their offense is their defense. It's just wow.
And the Nuggets are probably okay with
Porter too. We haven't even mentioned Porter Jr.
Right.
I mean, come on, man.
Nuggets are probably good with Bam Adebayo leading the Heat in scoring, right? Yeah. You're talking about giving him his shots.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think they would be okay with that. Yeah. Because that means Jimmy Butler's not doing a whole lot, right?
Yeah. No.
Hey, fun 2 hours went by just like 2 seconds, man. So, appreciate you having me and being able to fill in for
I always
Mickey.
Appreciate you, Rhett. Yeah, man. It was just like that fastball that guy just missed from cleansing.
So I guess we'll end it the way we always do. The way you and Mickey do is,
as always. In the meantime.
And in between time, peace.